Joe Manchin gives the final no vote of the year on the Build Back Better agenda. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on and what that means and where we go from there and where the White House goes from there. In other news, I guess I'm going to walk back what I said on Friday because the Sixth Circuit has officially come out and walked back their stance on the vaccine mandate. So as of right now, as of January 4th, get the jab or don't work if you work for a company that's over 100 employees. But we will talk a bit about what's going on with that and where that goes. Texas has started construction of a border wall. So we'll talk a bit about what that means and what that means for federalism and the federal government in and of itself. And Florida man has been captured finally. Florida man is off the streets now. He has been given 5 years for his assault, so-called, on the Capitol Selfie Fest. It is going to be all this and more. Let's go, Brandon. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got, as usual, coming in towards the end of the year, and on a Monday as well, a butt ton of stuff to get to. A little bit of leftover from Friday, but still, I mean, it's not as packed as a Monday has been, and this might not go all the way until 10. It might go a little bit into 10, but man, oh man, do we got a lot of stuff to do today. We're going to get through all of it today. Plus, one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition coming up here on Contemporary for Monday morning. So we got to get right into it. We have got to get going, fly through all this stuff here. There is some stuff, of course, that we do have to spend some time on as well, but we have really got to get into this and stay on task and get everything done here. But before we get started, before we can get on the task and everything else here, guys, make sure you go over and check out turnsandpagesproductions.com. Turnsandpagesproductions.com as we start into the new year. We hope to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We are looking for a great place to gather, put things together, and carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Freckles and Brit Show, and the Porch Boys. So go and check out that network. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be a lot of great content there. I mean, I look forward to seeing some of the stuff that we're going to be coming out with and actually having a place for written news so we can have news by the people for the people. At some point, I will be setting up a new fundraiser. The GoFundMe is shut down at this point. Thank you very much to everybody who donated for $580 and 80 US cents that we have put towards getting everything started, getting everything ready to go. So definitely go and check out turnsandpagesproductions.com and help us get started with what it is we're trying to get started here. All right, let's look in at the Dow to start with the morning. The Dow spent most of Friday down. Looks like, well, we're back down to 35,365.44. Looks like it just reset a second ago, though, so it did spend most of the day down. Looks like the futures are on the way down, too, because as much as we see almost nothing on the Omicron variant, the news media doesn't like that because they don't like the control that it takes away from them. And that seems to be the driving force is what's going down here, according to IBD, is the Omicron variant. So we will see what happens with that. Bitcoin, we'll get a quick refresh here, is down to $45,903 and 10 US cents. It's had a choppy weekend for sure. Coming back down once again, but I think holding steady as to what it's going to be through the rest of the year. Without some major holiday money getting invested into it, I'm pretty sure we're not going to see over 50 again before the end of the year. Now, once again, that could always happen, but as of right now, I don't see a lot of that happening at this point. So we'll see what happens with the Bitcoin, and we'll see where that goes, but we will continue to watch it as well. Looking in at your industrials on your scrap metal prices. Copper has turned upward. Steel has turned downwards. Aluminum has turned upward. Before we get into this, I want to point something out here, and this is some of the stuff that we watch off of this. So I was in a Discord call. I was talking to my friend Seawall, and he sent me a Facebook post that he found. He was getting ready to go back, and I believe he was selling a couch, if nothing else, if that's what we're saying. But he asked if I would want to have a Dodge Ram for $100, a 2015 Dodge Ram for $100. And I looked at the post, and it looked like the entire truck was completely wrecked. The door was hanging off it. There was dash panels in the box. The rims looked good, and most of the body lines looked good. It looks like it had run headlong into a wall face first, is what had happened. Took a door off. The box looked fine. And I almost went and got a trailer and drove down to Redacted to go and pick that motherfucker up for $100. Because just taking it in for scrap, and we'll talk about complete car later, just taking a 3,900 pound vehicle in for scrap would have netted me more than $100. I don't know if it would have netted me in more than what I would have got for the fuel to get to Redacted and back. But it definitely would have netted me more than $100. So, yeah, that's definitely... And I don't understand how people just do that. Oh, I'll sell this for $100. Why? You get more than that for scrap. And it's a 2015 Dodge. It's not like it's going to be worth much more than that anyway. Although, in the right hands, it probably could be. And I'll talk about that when we get to the complete car part. But, yeah, that's what we see off there. Copper is on the rise, steel is on the drop, and aluminum is on the rise once again. Looking in at your copper plays, brass shells are down, but all of your other copper plays are up. Conduit, BX steel, is up. Light iron is down. Number 1 steel is down. Cast iron is up. Rotors are up, and a complete car is down to $226 a ton. So just shy of 2 tons on that truck. Is just shy of $500. No, there was no rebuild to that truck, but I mean, even cutting the engine out of it, off the motor mounts, that right there would make it worth the $100 for that truck. No, there's no rebuild to that truck. That one's totaled. You spend more rebuilding it than you'll ever get out of it, but you'll get more out of piecing it out than $100, I can tell you that. Shreddable steel is down, stainless is down, and looking at your aluminum plays, it's weird that aluminum on the average is up, because it looks like all of your aluminum plays are actually down right now. Except for aluminum copper pin radiators, but that's probably the copper holding it up right now. Looking in at further plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down, batteries are up, catalytic converters are up. That's the other thing too, cut the cats off there. There's 5 of them on that truck. Regular domestic cat, yeah, $184 each. There's 5 of them on that truck. Unless they're already cut off. Compressors are down, alternators are down, carbide is up, hard drives are down, motherboards are down, but power supplies have turned to the upswing. So, that's what we see coming off of that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow Jones futures tumble in dangerous whipsaw rally as Omicron fears swell. Tesla rival NIO touts big ambitions. Dow futures fell sharply Monday along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. Omicron fears and restrictions are mounting with cases of the COVID variant spreading rapidly. The Netherlands is going into lockdown. Meanwhile, President Biden's latest spending bill is on the ropes after a key centrist Dem said he couldn't support the House version. The stock market rally is in a confirmed uptrend, but is struggling as the major indices and many leading stocks fell last week in a whipsaw fashion. Investors should be on the defensive, waiting for clear market strength before boosting exposure, especially in growth stocks. Microsoft has now joined fellow mega-cap stalwart Google parent Alphabet below its 50-day line. Apple fell solidly in its heaviest volume in months, though it's still holding above its 21-day line. NIO held its annual NIO Day on advertisement. NIO held its annual NIO Day on Saturday. The Chinese EV startup unveiled the ET5 starting at 51,450. It will have a base range of 341 miles, rising to as much as 620 miles, albeit on a very loose standard. The mid-size EV sedan is a potential competitor to the Model 3, the XPeng P7, the P5, and the BYD Han, the ET5. Deliveries will begin September of 2022. NIO claimed record pre-orders but gave no specifics. NIO also will begin deliveries of the upscale ET7 sedan unveiled at NIO Day on March 28, 2022. The NIO ET7 has a range of up to 620 miles by China's loose standard. NIO says it'll be in 25 countries by 2025, along with XPeng and BYD. NIO has recently started selling some EVs in Norway, a launching pad throughout Europe. NIO could use a lift, hitting a 13-month low intraday before closing higher. XPeng stock fell as well, with China EV and battery giant BYD are testing recent lows. NIO and XPeng fell modestly before the open, while BYD was not active. Tesla also reversed higher Friday from recent lows. The EV leader could be building a double-bottom base, but the same could not have been said in early December. It's better to wait for a real buy point rather than try to guess the bottom for Tesla stock. The official buy point could be 1202.05 with a trend line, early entry of 1140. In Tesla news, CEO Elon Musk tweeted Sunday night that he'll hold a grand opening party for the Austin plant in early 2022. Tesla held a grand opening event at the Berlin site in October 9th, but as of this weekend, the company has not yet submitted all the paperwork for a final permit to begin production at its Berlin plant. Tesla has said it would start production in Berlin and Austin before year-end. Also, Senator Manchin on Sunday said he will not vote for the House's Build Back Better bill. That means no new U.S. EV tax credits for Tesla or General Motors, at least for now, with a growing risk that nothing will pass. Other automakers are still eligible for $7,500 in federal credits under the existing program. Tesla stock fell modestly before Monday's open. Meanwhile, Micron Technologies and Dow component Nike are on tap Monday night, headlining a relatively quiet earnings slate during Christmas week. Micron stock and Nike are in consolidations but have pulled back over the past couple weeks. The Micron earnings and the guidance will be relevant for memory and mini chip related plays, while Nike results, forecasts, and supply chain comments may be a key for apparel and shoemakers and retailers. Tesla, Microsoft, Google are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft and Google are on the IBD long-term leaders. On the futures, Dow fell 1.2% versus fair value. On the futures alone, S&P sank 1.2% and NASDAQ sank 1.4%. The NASDAQ looks set to open near Friday's lows, not far from the rally lows from early December. Manchin's firm no on the House reconciliation bill raises the risk of lower fiscal spending next year. Goldman Sachs, now seeing at least a 50-50 chance of BBB legislation passing Congress, lowered its 2022 GDP forecast. The 10-year Treasury yield dipped 2 basis points to 1.38%. U.S. crude futures plunged nearly 5% below $68 a barrel. Please let gas come down a little bit further. 284 in Janesville, that seems to be the standard at this point. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. And even though we're not going to read into this section, look what came back up to the middle of the article. Look what came back. You know, we used to come back here, we used to see the Treasury yield or the Invesco QQQ in this section, but hey, now we're back up to coronavirus news. Because they're trying to peddle that fucking peer porn back on you. Isn't that funny? Isn't that special, you guys? Coronavirus news all the way back up to the middle of Investors Business Daily. I also noted yesterday, the gym that I go to has a panel of televisions across the front of it, and usually it's got worthless daytime TV. I know there's one that plays TBS all the time, because they've always got the Marvel movie of the day on at the time, and it's always been a Marvel movie every time I've gone there. I want to go there today, like Drew Barrymore's going to be on. That's probably going to be the one directly in front of me, but there's always a Fox and a CNN. And on the side that I work out on, you can clearly see the CNN. Guess what's back on the CNN screen? The case in the death tracker, the counter, up there, no matter what they're talking about in the main window, which I actually can't tell because I can't hear them. I'm usually listening to like sticks or something. But right there in the main window, whatever they're talking about, whether it be Manchin or whether it be January 6th or anything else they're trying to fear porn, on the corner there, you've got your coronavirus tracker. It's back. The fear porn is here, along with a strong suggestion to go get your vaccine, in spite of the fact they tell you it doesn't work. So that's what we see for that. Let's grab one from Market Watch. Dow futures slumped 350 points as Omicron fears ignite fresh selling. Excuse me. To kick off Christmas week trade. From Mike Murphy and Barbara Kohlmeyer. Well, see, there are 7,200 deaths around the country, Ron Hilton. There are 7,200 deaths, new deaths this week. But they won't tell us what variant they came from. Let's see here. Stock index futures were trading sharply lower Monday morning following a losing week on Wall Street amid worries about politics, Fed policy, and the fast-spreading Omicron variant of COVID-19. S&P 500 futures fell 52 points or 1.1% to 45,5850. Dow dropped 361 points or 1% to 34,901. Back under 34,000 after bragging so much how they got up above 36,000. NASDAQ declined 197.75 or 1.3% to reach 15,585. On Friday, the Dow dropped more than 500 points, with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ following it lower. For the week, Dow lost 1.7% and the S&P 500 dropped 1.9%. The NASDAQ tumbled 3%. As Omicron worries are related lockdowns in parts of Europe weighed on investors, news that President Biden's signature spending plan appeared doomed was being greeted with selling. Manchin said Sunday he cannot support it, potentially handing Biden and Democrats a major political loss. Goldman Sachs downgraded their U.S. growth forecast for 2022, citing difficulties in getting the spending bill passed. Last week's losses came as investors weighed the Federal Reserve's hawkish pivot, speeding up its reduction of monthly bond purchases and predicting 3 interest rate hikes next year. With flight to safety being overriding concern, lower bond yields are questioning the FOMC's ability to act as hawkish as they signaled last week. Markets are being challenged by a range of uncertainties at a time where thinner trading volumes ahead of the holiday period can exacerbate price swings, said John Hardy, head of the FX strategy at Saxo Bank, in a note to clients. So basically it's both the Build Back Bullshit bill, which I can't believe that's driving anything lower right now, because all it was going to do was inflate the currency out of the hands of people. But that's another story for another time, probably a little bit later on in the show. But also the Omicron. They are dead set on making sure that you are deathly afraid that if you step out your door one more time, you're going to get it. And if you get it, the voice comes over the phone and says, 7 days. The nearest phone to you rings if you step outside and you hear the voice. 7 days. But that's what we have coming off of that. Let's get into the main news of the day, and we're going to start with a couple of situations of government officials acting badly. Starting with the House Plant Chief himself. From Jewish deplorable, Biden just called Kamala President Harris.
All kidding aside, of course, President Harris is a proud Howard alum. She might have something to say about Delaware State. And to my family and friends, all kidding aside, of course, President Harris, of course, President Harris, of course, President Harris, of course, President Harris, President Harris, President Harris, President Harris, of course, President Harris, aside, of course, President Harris, aside, of course, President Harris.
What are we not telling? What's he not telling us? Or in this case, what is he telling us? What don't we know about what's going on in the government? I didn't vote for her. I didn't vote for him either, but the president, according to this House plant up here, the president of the United States came into the primaries with less than 1% approval.
Of course, President Harris.
All right, what else do we have here? And, looking back, I make mistakes, and I stumble over my words here every once in a while. But it's always a different mistake when I do it here on Contemporary. It's always a different kind of mistake. This is like the 4th or 5th time that he's come out and called her President Harris. So, that's what we see off that. More Biden behaving badly. Let's listen.
The goal I've set is 50% increase in the number of minority contracts going to minority firms by the year 2025. Because, folks, what we learn? We learn there's no difference between a black entrepreneur and a white entrepreneur in success, except the black entrepreneur usually doesn't have a lawyer, usually doesn't have someone who is going to be there, an accountant, to get it all. The goal I've set here usually doesn't have a lawyer, usually a white entrepreneur in success, except the black entrepreneur usually doesn't have a lawyer, usually firms by the year 2025. Because, folks, what we learn? We learn there's no difference between a black entrepreneur and a white entrepreneur in success.
That right there should have been where he stopped. But he's Joe Biden, and he has to keep going.
Except the black entrepreneur usually doesn't have a lawyer, usually doesn't have someone who is going to...
Does he not? Like, really? Does the black entrepreneur really not usually have a lawyer? Because if that's the case, then there does need to be some fix coming out of the legal system somewhere. But I suspect, no, that Mr. Biden is up here just telling us that, no, he's poor because he's black. There are black people who are lawyers, you moron. And there are black people who are hacks that call themselves lawyers. We know of one such attorney like that because he shows up every time there's something that the media comes back to hype up to see if they can't get a quick buck off racial tensions in the race war. His name is Benjamin Crump. And he's an asshole. I'm sure he would represent these black entrepreneurs.
What we learn? We learn there's no difference between a black entrepreneur and a white entrepreneur in success, except the black entrepreneur usually doesn't have a lawyer, usually doesn't have someone who is going to be there, an accountant, to get it all.
So, Brian Goldberg says, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm white, I don't have a lawyer. Systemic racism? And Brad Wallace says, oh, stop. He says way worse than this. And Katie LaFuerte says, right, Joe, couldn't get on the internet to find one? Oh, yeah, that's right, because they don't have internet access and they can't figure out how to vote and where to vote. More executive branch behaving badly. Kamala Harris explodes when asked who the real president is of this country. From Daily Wire News, Vice President Harris erupted during a friendly interview this week with Charlemagne the God, who has this amazing talent of getting Democrats to say stupid shit. When the media personality asked Harris who was the real president of the United States. Let's listen.
Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I don't think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlemagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
So I'm sorry. We got to wrap.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah. And Simone Sanders tried to save her on this too, by the way. Simone Sanders tried desperately to get this up off of there. Excuse me. A little bit of phlegm here. I keep breathing it in while I'm talking. We'll listen to this again in just a second here. But yeah, I mean, Simone Sanders jumped in to try to stop this. But it didn't work. And Kamala jingled her bracelets and tapped her toes and said, no, Joe Biden's president and I am vice president.
Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I don't think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so.
I mean, let's back up to this because, I mean, you know that Harris heard him.
I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry.
Because she tried hard to get that first jab in right there. She tried to get that jab in, and Simone Sanders jumped in and said, I'm sorry, we got to wrap that up.
I interrupted. I don't think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlamagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
I'm sorry. We got to wrap.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlamagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think?
And she is trying so hard to be black right there, too. Don't you start talking like a Republican, okay?
Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
So, there's that. But, what prompted this on this week came to us starting from CNN. From Daniela Diaz over at CNN, Manchin says he won't vote for Build Back Better Act. Democrat Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia says he's a no on the Build Back Bullshit Act, effectively ending negotiations on this version of the legislation that would expand the nation's social safety net. Manchin has always been a key holdout for the legislation, sharing concerns over certain provisions of the massive tax and spending bill and how it may exacerbate soaring inflation in the country. And I cannot vote to continue this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there, he said on Fox News Sunday. This is a no on the legislation. I have tried everything I know how to do. The president has worked diligently. He's been wonderful to work with. He knows I've had concerns and the problems I've had and, the thing. I know that wasn't a jab at Biden, but it's still funny. And, the thing. That we should all be directing our attention towards the variant of COVID that we have coming back at us in so many different aspects and different ways. It's affecting our lives again. Manchin supports support for the bill, a $1.9 trillion spending plan focused on expanding the nation's social safety net, reducing Americans' child care and health care costs, and climate change isn't necessary for Democrats to pass the legislation using a process called budget reconciliation, meaning it would only need 51 votes to pass. In a statement his office released after the interview, Manchin reiterated he couldn't support the legislation. I have always said, if I can't go back home and explain it, I can't vote for it. Despite my best efforts, I cannot explain the sweeping Build Back Better Act in West Virginia, and I cannot vote to move forward on this mammoth piece of legislation, he said in a statement. A person familiar with the discussions between Biden and Manchin told CNN it was clear that Manchin was headed this direction, as Biden privately told aides this week he was no longer confident he could ultimately get the West Virginia Democrat on board. But White House officials were surprised when Manchin informed them Sunday morning he had already arrived at a final decision. Their reaction was obviously not positive, according to the source. One senior admin official told CNN it was totally not a surprise. It was totally a surprise. Manchin informed the White House that the first to know, and he had not even told his staff yet. The president learned his chief negotiating partner was pulling the plug from the White House aides who did not hear the news directly from the senator, but from a member of his staff roughly 30 minutes before he went on air. Manchin wouldn't take a call from the White House staff who tried to reach him Sunday morning. According to a senior admin official, as of Sunday night, the two had still not spoken. According to a senior admin official. So, right there at this point, the Build Back bullshit bill is dead. They will probably try to get again coming into the midterms. I don't know how that would go over, though. That's the problem. Now, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at some of the things that that happen with this and some of the places that this goes. I don't know, because this was the big promise that they gave to Democrats. So they could come to they're going to lose their base if they don't pass this. But it's the independent voter that they're courting. Because a lot of their base are just going to throw down and put the D on the piece of paper no matter who it is, especially if it's Donald Trump running again. Which honestly, just because of the political nature of this and the vote blue no matter who, especially if it's evil Donald Trumpler, I would honestly think, and this is coming from somebody who would like to see another term of the Donald. As scary as that sounds. That would probably be the worst thing for the country. Not because his agenda would be bad, but because so many people would be lined up around the block, waiting in line for hours, sometimes days on end, to make sure that they voted and filled out their mail-in ballots and their neighbors' mail-in ballots and 75 other people's mail-in ballots to make sure that there was no chance in history that Donald Trump could get a second term. There would be honk honk to a level that you have never seen honked before if he ran again. No matter how bad the Biden admin has failed. There will be honk honk so honky that it'll be honking all the way on the other side of the world in Australia. But with that, I mean, their base is going to vote blue no matter who, coming into midterms and then up beyond. But the independent voter, I don't think is sold on this. And I think that's a big part of the reason that Manchin isn't getting behind it. Because the independent voter isn't sold on this. And that could, with the Build Back Better agenda and the inflation that we're already seeing, they could overturn Roe and have 35 states ban abortion outright. And possibly still lose. I have no idea where this goes or what they try to do. I did think to myself that this did seem like an election ploy to come back out and say, okay, Democrats, get out there and vote because we need to have 60 votes in the Senate. Trust me, you're a great senator, Joe Manchin. I will get this Build Back Better agenda delivered, but I guess we will continue to watch this and see where this goes. Grabbing one from Fox News. Manchin's media critics predict Build Back Better no vote is a threat to the future of American democracy. From Lindsay Cornick. Some liberal media commentators predicted Sunday that West Virginia Senator Manchin's vote against President Biden's Build Back bullshit plan could very well spell the end of democracy. Manchin announced on Fox News Sunday that he will be a definitive no on voting for the Build Back bullshit plan after a lengthy debate. Do we have video? We do not have video. But we have a tweet from Jennifer Rubin. I've always said this, Brett. If I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. Manchin told guest host Brett Baer, and I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there. He later answered, this is a no on this piece of legislation. I have tried everything I know to do. Liberal media and progressive politicians immediately attacked Manchin for his position, including his colleague Bernie Sanders, who accused Manchin of being beholden to pharmaceutical companies. Others called the decision devastating, while ABC's This Week panel showed visual disappointment in the news. However, there were also several consistent predictions that Manchin's decision could herald the end of democracy as they knew it. MSDNC's Mehdi Hassan tweeted out, "What's worse, that Manchin is killing the Biden legislative agenda and perhaps the future of American democracy too, or that he wasted most of the year dragging this whole thing out to do it, and wasted half the time the Dems control Congress and the White House." In a largely mock tweet, the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, Jennifer Rubin wrote, "If Manchin is a no on both the BBB and voting, Biden is done. Democracy's hanging by a thread. Oh my God." Hard to think of anyone more destructive. In an appearance on CNN's Unreliable Sources, journalist Carl Bernstein also implied that Manchin's vote could drastically affect American democracy in his refusal to eliminate the filibuster in the Senate. And this also goes into the questioning of voting rights because unless there's something that can be done about the filibuster rule in the Senate, which Manchin again has indicated he will not change, there is not going to be an effective legislative means of doing what needs to be done to guarantee American democracy through the right to vote for all Americans without being suppressed, as we're seeing now, Bernstein said. Bernstein earlier described Manchin's vote as a huge setback. No, you're wrong. Net neutrality was supposed to be the downfall of humanity. The whole thing with Joe Manchin actually doesn't mean anything because we're extinct right now because net neutrality went away. We actually all died because of net neutrality. It's a huge setback and shows once again the power of Senator Manchin, which is so disproportionate to what it ought to be in Senator Sinema as well. But what we have here is the interest of the American people in the legislation, and it's going down, defeated, or not come to fruition, Bernstein said. Others have claimed that Manchin's vote in and of itself proves the end of democracy. And that's part of the bullshit that they're trying to spread off this and the propaganda they're trying to sell off this. It is the end of democracy. Because one person, one senator could stop Biden's agenda. No mention of the other 50 that have voted against it. Getting rid of this, ending this bill, is a majority rule. On a simple majority, by the way, I would have you note as well. On a simple majority, the senators of this country have said, no, we don't want this. This is bullshit. I thought you loved simple majority. That's why you want the filibuster ended. You love simple majority. You love to come in here and say, oh yes, no, 50 plus 1 across the country means that we can take whatever we want from you, and there's more of us than there are of you billionaires. It's not the end of democracy, even though democracy should be ended. It's the end of a bloated, overbilled bill that should have never had any place in the government in the first place. And I'm glad to see it. Even though we'll be talking about it after the midterms. Once again. From ABC, The Power of One, Manchin is singularly halting Biden's agenda. From Lisa Mascaro and Farnoosh Amiri of the Associated Press. Manchin settled in at President Biden's family home in Delaware Sunday morning in the fall as the Democrats worked furiously to gain his support on the far-reaching domestic package. The 2-hour-long session was the kind of special treatment being showered on the West Virginia senator, the president at one point even showing Manchin around his Wilmington home. That had been a funny thing to see. Hey, Joe! Yeah, come with me! I discovered this room the other day that I never knew was here. And it's got a big bed in it. And Jill led me here and made me lay down in it. And Jill walks up, taps him on the shoulder, says, No, don't let Joe fool you. This is his bedroom, and he always knew about this being here. Come on, Joe, time to take your medicine. But months later, despite Democrats slashing Biden's big bill in half and meeting the senator's other demands, Manchin is no closer to voting yes. In an extraordinary display of political power in the evenly split 50-50 Senate, a single senator is about to seriously set back an entire presidential agenda. Once again, no mention of the other 50. "We're frustrated and disappointed," said Dick Durbin, a majority whip. "Very frustrated," said another Democrat senator, granted anonymity to frankly discuss the situation on Thursday. It was burning. Biden said in a statement on Thursday night that this is how the interview went down, if they just televised it as well. That it blanked out the face. You'd only seen the outline and the tufts of wild hair sitting up off the top. And you had heard, "Whoa, we're very disappointed in the way that this bill went. And are you sure they can't see my face over here? Because if they see my face, they might know where my 3 homes are. My first home in Vermont, and my second home in D.C., and then my summer camp. But you're sure they can't see my face, Maddie?" And yes, they're trying to put this on one person right now. He's going to be their punching bag, and they're not even going to try to sell to him. That's the worst part of it. That's a big part of why the filibuster is there in the first place. It's not there to block democracy. Well, it kind of is, but it's there to make sure that you come back out here and make a bill that's worthwhile to a supermajority of the American people, not just 50+1. And if it's not, then you either have to try to sell it or try to rebuild it so it is acceptable to 50 to 60% of the people in this country. So, and yes, they're going to go pile on the criticism. 47th in the nation for healthcare, 45th in education. Manchin is look at all these poor people. He's hurting this, that, and the next thing. From the Daily Wire, Ilhan Omar launches profane tirade on Joe Manchin during MSDNC interview. Complete bullshit. We have a video. Ilhan Omar launched into a profane tirade on Sunday in response to Manchin once again indicating he will not vote to advance the Build Back bullshit agenda. "And you know my concerns I had." Oh, that's Manchin. "And you know my concerns I had, and I still have these concerns where I'm at right now. The inflation that I was concerned about, it's not transitory, it's real. It's harming every West Virginian," Manchin told Fox News. "It's making it almost difficult for them to continue to go to their jobs. The cost of gasoline, the cost of groceries, the cost of utility bills. All these things are hitting in every aspect of their lives." And you start looking at, then you have the debt that we're carrying, $29 trillion, and you also have the geopolitical unrest that we have. You have the COVID variant. That's wreaking havoc again. People are concerned. I've been with my family. I know everyone's concerned. Well, let's listen to Ilhan.
Humanly possible. I can't get there. Brett Baer, the anchor, says you're done. Manchin says this is a no. On this legislation, I have tried everything I know how to do. Your response to that?
I mean, we all knew that Senator Manchin couldn't be trusted. You know, the excuses that he just made, I think, are complete bullshit. It is really disheartening to hear him say that he has been trying to get there for the people of West Virginia, because that's a complete lie. The people of West Virginia would greatly benefit from their families having access to long-term elderly care and care for folks with disabilities. They would benefit from the expansion of the child tax credits. They will benefit from having access to pre-K. There are just so many things.
There's so many things that they would benefit from, and we're making sure that the free market cannot be the one that does this, because it's the government that'll have to do that, because if they don't vote the way that we want them to, we will take it away from them once again. We have to have this control. And some people did something. All right, what else do we have here? On other financial news here, Elizabeth Warren, because part of what's tied into this bill is the child tax credit. Families are using the child tax credit to buy diapers and school shoes, to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. We need to get this out every single month. Families can't afford for us to fall behind. Yes, get American people hooked on another government program. That's always good. And the first comment that comes up, the highlighted comment, is one that I had to come back and comment on as well. Shane Hazel, by the way, they got off there too. Hey Liz, Americans spend more on taxes than food and clothing and housing combined. We don't fucking need you. We can't afford you and you can't stop Bitcoin. Freedom is coming and you're on the wrong side. Also, I noticed that EpiPen is trending, probably because of Joe Manchin right now, because apparently his daughter made a fortune off gouging off EpiPen. But go ahead, primary him from the left and see what you get instead. But this one here, and this is, what I've pointed out about having to raise the debt ceiling to pay our bills, not spending packages like this, but, they try to sell it, this is to pay our bills. Marcus Kublin tweets out, please fight to extend this child tax credit. It's how we're paying our electric bill and other utilities. To which I came back and responded, I hate to rain on your parade, brother, but if you're reduced to using government subsidy to pay utilities, you've got a bigger problem. Once again, and consumables, for the most part, shouldn't be bought on credit. I have used a credit card to pay for a date before. I've used it for that. And I've used it to pay for, Chinese food. When I used to get Chinese food on a Thursday and everybody else got involved, all the rest of my coworkers got involved because they paid me in cash for the Chinese food. And I'd swipe the credit card, the Capital One card, to go get the miles. And then take all the cash that they paid me and pay off what I put on there for the Chinese food. So things that you can either quick turn around and pay off like that, or making a big purchase. Something that you wouldn't necessarily do. When I do gardening, I put the supplies on the credit card because I usually take and either eat the food later, so it's reducing my grocery bill, or sell the plant. I've done that from time to time too. I restrict my credit card use basically onto either emergencies or something I can turn around and make more money off of. Something I can turn around and sell. Anything that I do with this, with the hopes that you guys throw something into the buy me a coffee, goes onto the credit card. Except for the computer, I paid cash for that. But yeah. This was just another situation of right now Elizabeth Warren and all her buddies got the American people hooked on a program that they would have had back at the end of the year anyway, because this is an advance on their tax refund or their tax credit. Got them hooked on the program and now are yelling because people want to come back and take it away. And government programs never get taken away. I mean, look at the Unaffordable Care Act. That's another one. People can't imagine not having insurance out there like that anymore because they all got hooked on the program. As my buddy told me at the time, I don't need to come and work at the dealership. And this was when it passed. I don't need to work at the dealership anymore if they're not going to pay me more than this. Fuck, I can go to Taco Bell and get my insurance. Where you couldn't do that before because they didn't offer insurance. But yeah, I mean, if you're taking government subsidy and paying your electric bill, you're fucked already. You've got bigger problems. And the child tax credit's not going to help you, I'm sorry. All right, from Fox Business. Appeals court allows Biden vaccine mandate for large companies to resume. Shifting off of the financial aspect of things and looking at what's going to cost a lot of people their jobs. From Keith Koffler. A federal appeals court Friday reinstated the Biden admin's vaccine mandate for large companies, dissolving a stay by a separate court that had suspended the mandate. The decision is the latest skirmish and continuing battle that will likely soon be decided by the Supreme Court. A coalition of 27 business groups quickly appealed to the nation's highest court Friday to block the lower court's mandate, according to Politico. They claimed the mandate would bring harm to thousands of businesses, and it will. The Biden vaccine mandate forces companies with 100 employees or more to require their workers be vaccinated against the pinko fucking pox or submit to weekly testing. The requirement takes effect on January 4th. In a 2-1 ruling, a panel on the U.S. Appeals Court for the 6th Circuit that ruled that the Biden admin could enforce the policy using the Labor Department's Occupational Safe and Health Administration. Recognizing that the old normal is not going to return, employers and employees have sought new models for a workplace that will protect the safety and health of employees who earn their living there, wrote Judge Jane Branstetter Strange, a Barack Obama appointee for the majority, in need of guidance on how to protect their employees from the COVID-19 transmission. While reopening businesses, employers turned to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. No, they didn't. They absolutely 100% did not turn to there. That was the government that went back and did that. And turned and said, hey, Jill, why are people getting this vaccine that Pfizer is paying me in campaign donations for? Jill, come in here. The Wheel of Fortune, I can't hear it. Jill, what do we do about... Oh, I know. We'll use the OSHA to come out here and push this out. Hey, I'm going to use the government to force people to get the vaccine. The business people didn't care, unless they were major mega donors to the Democrat Party. The businesses, though, did not give a flying fuck about this mandate. The rule establishing the mandate had prompted a slate of legal challenges from at least 27 states, as well as businesses and religious groups that argued that the mandate is unconstitutional. The 5th Circuit on November 12th ordered OSHA to take no steps to implement or enforce the mandate until further court order reaffirming an earlier decision it had made. The court said the mandate exposes the petitioners to serve the financial risk and threatens to decimate their workforces and business prospects. The Biden admin was forced to halt the mandate following the ruling, but Friday, the 6th Circuit ruled that the mandate was needed to limit transmission of the virus. The costs of delaying implementation of the mandate are comparatively high, Strange wrote in the ruling. Fundamentally, the mandate is an important step to curtailing the transmission of a deadly virus. Opponents say the policy is a backdoor effort to force the population to get vaccinated. The business-backed Job Creators Network, which is a party to the case, expressed disappointment. This mandate adds an incredible burden on small business owners who are still suffering negative impacts of the pinko fucking pox. A group said in a statement, JCN has immediately asked the Supreme Court to save businesses and employees from this government overreach. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. And I do have to walk back what I said on Friday, because the way that the article that I read on Friday had read, it was the fact that, okay, well, the 6th Circuit shredded this all up, which means that Biden lost his agenda. I made the mistake, and I was wrong. So I will come back and say, no, this was incorrect, and this is what the government actually is doing to you. From the Blaze. Joe Biden will issue stark warning to the unvaccinated Americans in national address on Omicron variant. From Chris Enlow. President Biden will address the nation on Tuesday over growing COVID cases attributed to the Omicron variant, where he will still issue a stark warning to those not vaccinated against the pinko fucking pox. The national address will come at a time when scientists dispute the threat from the Omicron. While the variant appears highly transmissible, the hospitalization rate in South Africa, where Omicron was first identified, suggests the cases wave there has already peaked. The White House press secretary, red-haired bobblehead, released a statement Saturday announcing the Biden address, and she previewed what the president will say. On Tuesday, the president will circle back and deliver remarks on the status of the country's fight against COVID-19 as the country sees rising cases amid the growing Omicron variant, Psaki said. Building off his winter plan, the president will announce new steps in the administration is taking to help communities in need of assistance, while also issuing a stark warning to what the winter will look like for Americans that choose to remain unvaccinated, she continued. We're prepared for the rising case levels, and the president will detail how we will respond to this challenge. And he will remind Americans that they can protect themselves from severe illnesses from COVID-19 by getting vaccinated and getting their booster shot when they're eligible, the statement said. The White House did not provide additional details about what the Biden will say, nor is it clear what stark warning Biden will deliver to Americans who remain unvaccinated against the pinko fucking pox. The winter plan that Psaki cited is the Biden admin's 5-pronged response to the seasonal influx of the COVID cases. The plan includes promoting booster shots, launching family vaccination clinics, expanding access to free at-home COVID test kits, expanding the surge response teams, and increasing international travel rules for the people visiting the U.S. So I guess we'll see what happens there. I also love the fact that Howard Foreman can get away with having triple parentheses around his screen name and have a blue check mark still. That's amazing. I hate to say, that's amazing. But yeah, I guess we'll have to hear what he has to say, but he's going to get out there. Hey, come on, man. Just get the vaccine. I need campaign donations from Pfizer. You know who else is promoting the booster? The Pentatonics. Let's listen.
1, 2, 3, 4. Get your booster. 1, 2, 3. Just like a seed for a little kid, just like the heat from a rocket ship. Sometimes all you need is a booster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get your booster. 1, 2, 3. Just like a seed for a little kid, just like the heat from a rocket ship. Sometimes all you need is a booster.
There you go. You heard a medium-rated a cappella group that was really, really big 5 years ago and pops back up around Christmas till you get the booster. Doesn't that make you want to go back out and get the booster? Come on, guys. Pentatonics told you to do it. Doesn't that mean that you want to go back out and do it? This kind of messaging, it's just, I mean, it's ridiculous. Fuck. The Donald has better messaging for Republicans and MAGA people to go get the booster than for these guys. I mean, the people who are, for the most part, listening to Pentatonics, and I will admit that the day this video came out, I actually had been listening to their Christmas album because I've been shuffling through all the Christmas stuff over on Spotify for the last week at work. Much to the chagrin of my coworkers. But I've been listening to every pop, country, Celtic, 8-bit, lo-fi, Christmas one I can find. And the day this video came out, I had been listening to this band. But for the most part, the people who are listening to Pentatonics already have their first and second doses, plus their first and second boosters, and another booster just for good measure. Or the vast majority of Pentatonics audience, they're already fully boosted. Because they do whatever the fucking government tells them to do. But just because I had to hear it, I'm going to torment you with it one more time.
1, 2, 3, 4. Get your booster. 1, 2, 3. Just like a seed for a little kid, just like the heat from a rocket ship. Sometimes all you need is a booster.
I hear you had the Jonas Brothers up there too, and I didn't find that clip, nor did I really want to, but Apparently, the Joe Bros are also telling you to go get your booster. Here's one from the Atlantic for you. Where I live, no one cares about COVID. From Matthew Walther. In November, my wife asked me whether I had seen the article with the remarkable headline, "Is it safe to go to Thanksgiving dinner?" Is that from last year, I asked. No, it's from a few days old, she said, her voice sinking to a growling murmur. These people. I'm old enough to remember the good old days when holiday advice pieces were all variations on how to talk to your Tea Party uncle about Obamacare. As Christmas approaches, we can look forward to more of this sort of thing with a meta-ethical speculation advanced to an impossibly baroque stage of development. Is it okay for a 2-year-old son to hug grandma at a Christmas party if she received her booster only a few days ago? Should the toddler wear a mask except when he's slopping mashed potatoes all over his booster seat? Our oldest oh my god, the propaganda here already. Our oldest finally attended her first mass sleepover with her fully vaccinated 10-year-olds, but one of them had a sibling test positive at daycare. Should she stay home or wear a face shield? What about Omicron? If this is the panic that you have right now, I feel bad for your kids. No offense. I don't know how to put this in a way that will not make me sound flippant. No one cares, literally speaking. I don't know. I know that isn't true, because if it were, the articles wouldn't be commissioned. But outside the world inhabited by the professional and managerial class, in a handful of major metropolitan areas, many, if not most Americans, are leading their lives as if COVID is over, and they have been for a long while. In my part of rural southwest Michigan, in similar communities throughout the country, that is true not despite but without any noticeable regard for cases. Hospitalization statistics, which are always high at this time of year without attracting much notice, or death reports. I don't mean to deny COVID's continuing presence. For the purpose of this piece, I looked up the COVID data for my county and found that the 7-day average for positive tests is as high as it's ever been, and that 136 deaths have been attributed to the virus since June of 2020. What I wish to convey is that the virus simply does not factor into my calculations, or those of my neighbors, who've been foregoing mask tests unless work imposes them, in which case they're shrugged off as the usual BS from human resources, and other tangible markers of the pinko fucking pox's existence for months, perhaps even longer. Yeah, it's the same thing here in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, it's even in a major metropolitan area. I went to Milwaukee yesterday, and I don't have any new bullet holes in me. I went to Milwaukee yesterday. Christmas present that I needed. I couldn't get off Amazon in a timely fashion. And there's no real bookstore around where I live, so I went over to Milwaukee. Deep into the heart of Milwaukee. I went to Mayfair. For those of you familiar with the area. And you know what I saw? Almost no social distancing. A mall, and I do understand it was the Sunday before Christmas, but a mall packed to levels that it was pre-pandemic. 1% of people wearing masks in the mall. And on the Mayfair side of town, I mean, it's not like the people that live on that side of town are going to mask up or do what the government says anyway, but I mean, one of the few people that I saw wearing a mask, it was either security guards or some guy some solicitor that came up to me to try to sell whatever the fuck he was selling and got the Jedi mind trick done on him. He walked up to me in a mask and said, "Excuse me, sir," and "You don't want to talk to me." And I said, I don't want to talk to you. And he walked away. But, yeah. It's like that here. I mean, if you go around Janesville, I mean, here in Redacted, we even during the breadth of the pandemic, if you saw a mask, it was a neck gaiter worn around somebody's neck and not around their mouth. But hell, in Janesville, it looks, except for all the help wanted signs, exactly like it did before. And the fact that the Potbelly is now a Spectrum store. It looks otherwise exactly like it did before. Nobody gives a fuck about this anymore. outside of, like he said, upper managerial, white upper class. Who'll have to sit here. Can I send my kid to a sleepover? So good on them. From CNN. Pfizer's child-side vaccine fails to produce expected immunity in younger kids. Company adds third dose to trials. From Maggie Fox and Virginia Langmaid. Get your boosters forever. Vaccine maker Pfizer said Friday that trials of the vaccine in children ages 2 to 5 show that it did not provide the expected immunity in kids in this age and added the third dose to the regimen. The company decided to add the third dose for all children and babies ages 6 months to 5 years after its independent outside advisors took a look at the data so far. It showed that 2 child-sized doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine were not producing the expected immunity in the 2 to 5-year-olds, although they were doing so for the babies up to age 2. So the company said it would amend the trial to add a third dose. The study will now include evaluating a third dose of 3 micrograms at least 2 months after the second dose of the 2-dose series to provide high levels of protection in this young age group, it said. And yet, children aren't getting this thing, and they're not dying from it. Unless they have some major comorbidity in and along with getting the pinko fucking pox. Here's an interesting one. Let's listen to this clip from Trevor Noah because he's almost there. He's almost there. He's almost figured it out. And he's never going to because Comedy Central will cancel his fucking contract as soon as he figures it out. But he's almost there. Let's listen.
On the one hand, almost all the Omicron cases have been mild so far. But on the other hand, the guy who stands to gain millions of dollars from new vaccines says we need new vaccines. If we don't make a new vaccine, this disease could be with us forever. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. Now, look, I'm not saying that the CEO of Moderna is lying. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I don't think he's the most objective source on this topic. I'll wait to hear what neutral experts say about a new vaccine.
Neutral experts, you mean scientists being paid in research grants by the government to come with a specific response that they can turn over to vaccine makers so they can make billions of dollars off of this.
People like public health officials or the CEO of Johnson & Johnson. He's got nothing to gain because nobody's going to buy his vaccines either way, so I trust him. On the one hand...
He's almost there. It's amazing to me, too, how you realize how unfunny Trevor Noah is when they don't have the applause sign, the clapter sign sitting up there either. When he speaks and you don't hear, orange man bad, He's not funny, and he never has been. But just when you can hear him, and you don't have the psychological response of hearing the laughter up behind him to say, oh, I'm supposed to find this funny. But he's almost there. That's the worst part of it. He's almost got it. He's almost figured it out. What I've been saying from the beginning.
On the other hand,
follow the money.
The guy who stands to gain millions of dollars from new vaccines says we need new vaccines. If we don't make a new vaccine, this disease could be with us forever.
Almost there. Just a little bit more, Trevor Noah. Just go a little bit more, and you'll have 25 guns in your house and a Gadsden flag behind you. Just think about that a little bit further through. And speaking of that, we have one from Reuters on the same vein. Pfizer says pandemic could extend to 2024. Vaccine data for younger children delayed. Interesting. They picked an election year for that. That's interesting. Pfizer on Friday forecast the COVID-19 pandemic would not be behind us until 2024 and said lower dose version of its vaccine for 2 to 4-year-olds generated a weaker immune response than expected, potentially delaying authorization. Pfizer Chief Scientific Officer Michael Dolstein said in a presentation to investors that the company expects some regions to continue to see pandemic levels of the pinko fucking pox over the next 2 years. Other countries will transition to endemic with low manageable caseloads during that same time period. By 2024, the disease should be endemic around the globe, the company projected. It already is. When and how exactly this will happen will depend on the evolution of the disease, how effectively society deploys vaccines and treatments, and equitable distribution to places where vaccination rates are low, Dolstein said. The emergence of new variants could also impact how the pandemic continues to play out. Pfizer developed its COVID-19 vaccine with Germany's BioNTech SE and currently expects to generate revenue of $31 billion next year. It plans to make 4 billion shots next year. The drug maker also has an experimental antiviral pill called Paxlovid, which reduced hospitalizations and deaths in high-risk individuals by nearly 90%. In a clinical trial, 3 analysts estimate the sales of $15 billion to $25 billion for it in the next year, according to IBES data from Refinitiv. So, they've already made $31 billion off the shot, but it's free! And now they're going to make $15 billion to $25 billion off the Pfizer Mectin. But it's free! What did I tell you right from the beginning? $31 billion in revenue coming off of your taxpayer dollar because the government bought all those doses. Yes, it's free to the end user. And you and your taxpayer dollars, in something that progressives used to fucking hate, by the way, the government is giving taxpayer dollars over to billion-dollar companies. In the billions of dollars range. And nobody finds a problem with this. That's the part that just gets me, is that nobody sees a problem with any of this. They just, oh no, give me another booster, quick, give me another booster. And only their messiah, Trevor Noah, has come close to figuring out the Ponzi scheme. From the Blaze, White House goes into damage control mode after Harris admits Biden admin didn't see COVID variants coming. From Chris Enlow, I don't think there's video of this one, because I think I looked for it earlier. And yeah, that's why the article's already expanded out. This is from Chris Enlow. The White House issued a statement Saturday clarifying remarks that the vice president made one day earlier, in which she admitted the Biden admin did not anticipate waves of COVID-19 variant infections. While speaking with the LA Times, Harris admitted the Delta and Omicron variants caught the Biden admin by surprise. We didn't see the Delta coming. I think most scientists did not. Behind the bus and the direction we have relied didn't see Delta coming, Harris said. We didn't see Omicron coming, and that's the nature of what this awful virus has been. Which, as it turns out, has mutations and variants. The Biden admin, of course, could not have predicted the specific variants of the virus that have plagued the world. However, viral mutation is a well-established scientific fact, so Harris's admission understandably generated headlines across the media on Friday. After all, Joe Biden essentially declared victory over the pinko fucking pox in July when he declared American independence from the virus. Yeah, I remember that. How did that go? Harris, however, denied that the Biden admin ever declared victory over the COVID-19. We have not been victorious over it, she told the paper. I don't think that in any regard anyone can claim victory when, there are 800,000 people dead because of this virus. An advisor to Harris released a statement that clarified Harris was specifically referring to Delta and Omicron, not the elementary fact that COVID-19 would create viral mutations. The vice president's comments referred to the exact kind of mutation, the advisor told CNN. The administration knew mutations were possible. It's the reason we ordered extra tests, extra gear, and extra PPE. And not the fact that you were getting kickbacks from the manufacturers of extra tests, extra gear, and extra PPE. It's the reason the president and our entire administration warned early and often that the best way to get to the other side of the pandemic is to get vaccinated. We were and continue to be prepared, the statement reportedly added. Harris and the president warned for months. They say the best way to get to the other side is to get vaccinated. Why they were doing that? Because there were clear mutations that could occur, the advisor said. Yep, that sounds like damage control mode. Alright, what else do we have? Totally coincidental. Totally. Italy, after the mandatory vaccination for all security forces is approved, the military warehouse where the vaccines were stored magically catches fire. It's a mystery. I don't know, man. It's a mystery. Hey, look, it's the patron saint of medicine, Dr. Fauci. If you attack the science, you attack Dr. Fauci. If you attack Dr. Fauci, you attack the science. I am the science, and you will do whatever I tell you to. Flu vaccines don't match the main circulating flu virus strain, researchers find, from Maggie Fox. So does a flu vaccine, does it actually do anything for you? Because I've never had one. I've had no desire to go and get one. One of the main circulating influenza viruses has changed, and the current flu vaccines don't match it well anymore. An indication that they may not do much to prevent infection, researchers reported on Thursday, but they're still likely to prevent severe illness. So this is kind of a backpedal to come back out and say, oh, vaccines were never meant to prevent you from getting an illness. Take the shot, bigot. From our lab-based studies, it looks like a major mismatch. Scott Hensley, professor of microbiology at the University of Pennsylvania, who led the study, told CNN. It's bad news for the vaccine, he said. Influenza protect us against 4 different strains of the flu, H3N2, H1N1, and 2 strains of influenza B. Hensley's study only covers H3N2, but that happens to be the main circulating strain. The vaccine mismatch may help explain an outbreak of the flu at the University of Michigan last month that affected more than 700 people. Or it could have to do with the fact that finals week was over and they all got drunk and made out and fucked each other until the end of time. More than 26% of those who tested positive have been vaccinated against the flu, the same percentage as those who tested negative. That indicates the vaccine was not effective in preventing infection. It's what flu viruses do, Hensley said. We've been monitoring the virus for several months. He said flu viruses mutate all the time, far more than our other viruses, including the coronavirus and different variations that can circulate at the same time. But this version of H3N2 has changes that help it escape the antibodies the body makes in response to vaccines. I don't know. Never had a flu vaccine, never had an interest. Here's an interesting one, a little bit of breakthrough stuff for you. Southwest CEO tests positive for the pinko fucking pox after questioning mask rules at Senate hearing. Coming to the New York Post via Reuters. Southwest Chief Executive Gary Kelly tested positive for the commie fucking coof after it appearing at a Senate hearing where he questioned the health benefits of masks on airplanes, a spokesperson for the airline confirmed to Reuters. Kelly appeared on Wednesday at the Senate Commerce hearing with the CEOs of United Airlines and American Airlines, as well as senior Delta Airlines executive and the head of a flight attendants union. The other airlines did not immediately comment on whether their executives had been tested for the pinko fucking pox. Southwest confirmed Kelly's positive test after Reuters learned of it through their other officials. Kelly did not wear a mask for parts of the hearing and questioned the health benefit of masks on airplanes. I think the case is very strong that masks don't add much, if anything, to the air cabin environment. It's very safe, very high quality compared to any other indoor setting, Kelly said. Kelly told other airlines of the positive test on Thursday. So he went into Congress, he took the test, and he got the coup. You know who else got the coup? From ABC 7 Eyewitness News out of Chicago. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker test positive for COVID breakthrough. From the Associated Press. Should always get tested, MK Ultra. No matter what. Even if you have no symptoms, you should always get tested. Get tested 5 times a day. 5 times a day you should get tested. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Cory Booker said Sunday that they both tested positive for the pinko fucking pox as the country deals with another surge in cases and the emergence of the Omicron variant. The Cherokee Democrat tweeted that she's vaccinated, has received her booster shot, and is experiencing mild symptoms in a breakthrough case of the virus. Thankfully, I am only experiencing mild symptoms, and am grateful for the protection provided against serious illness that comes from being vaccinated and boosted, she wrote, using the occasion to urge anyone not vaccinated to do so. Warren didn't elaborate on where she might have contracted the virus, Gary Kelly, but she's regularly tested and turned up negative for the pinko fucking pox earlier this week. Spokespersons for her office didn't respond to an email seeking comment on Sunday. Warren was at the Capitol this week along with other senators as Democrats seek to pass the $2 trillion Build Back Bullshit Social and Environment bill. Senator Booker of New Jersey tweeted Sunday that he first felt symptoms the previous day and that they were relatively mild. He's also received his booster and is a breakthrough case of the pinko fucking pox. Let's read what he had to say. Hold on. I gotta get my crazy eyes up here. Get into the crazy mindset. I have to overact when I read this. Are you ready? I learned today that I tested positive for COVID-19 after first feeling symptoms on Saturday. My symptoms are relatively mild. I'm beyond grateful to have received 2 doses of vaccine and, more recently, a booster. I'm certain that without them, I would be doing much worse. The only person who can overact better than Cory Booker is William Shatner. So, yeah, they both got him. Breakthrough. Breakthrough cases from the vaccine that totally works and everybody should go get it. From KTAR News out of Arizona, Governor Ducey says state, county, city, or town cannot mandate COVID-19 vaccine. From Danny Shapiro. Governor Ducey issued an executive order Wednesday that says the state, counties, cities, and towns can't mandate the pinko pox vaccine for employees. The 9-page order mostly deals with enhanced surveillance and monitoring to limit the spread of the virus, but that's some good news right there, but includes the provision, which came on the same day that Banner Health, the state's largest private employer, said it was running out of beds to care for patients and may need to start choosing who can receive care if hospitalization trends continue. Yeah, maybe firing all those nurses wasn't the best thing in the world for you. The order could have a direct effect on Tucson, which has required the vaccination to continue employment with the city. The Tucson City Council approved the ordinance on November, said that employees who haven't received at least one shot of the vaccine and have not received an approved exemption or accommodation by December 1st could be fired. About 99% of city employees had been at least partially vaccinated by the deadline. Phoenix previously voted to require the pinko pox vaccine for city employees, but paused the mandate December 7th following a court ruling that temporarily blocked the requirement for all federal contract workers. So, well, here comes the battle. And here comes the time when the private employer comes out and says, well, I will still do it anyway. Fuck all those nurses. We don't need those ICU beds. From Newsweek. Mobile morgues return as states prepare for COVID Omicron surge. From Ewan Quayle. Refrigerated mobile morgues are returning to multiple stages as hospitals struggle to cope with surging winter COVID infections. The fridges, used to preserve dead bodies when hospital morgues overflow, were a symbol of dread in the early days of the pandemic as infections spiraled out of control. Even before the expected post-Christmas wave of infections, a county in Arizona has spent $65,000 on a mobile morgue because virus deaths have far exceeded the area's capacity. Similarly, in a hospital in Akron, Ohio, healthcare staff bought a trailer to more than triple its morgue space. The news comes as states prepare for a major wave of infections in early 2022, following large households gatherings at Christmas and New Year's, and the emergence of the most infectious variant yet, Omicron. The White House is hoping that if enough people get a booster between now and New Year, an overwhelming number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths will be avoided. But others have been critical of the Biden admin's refusal to contemplate stricter COVID measures. Well, it's probably going to be like the hospital ship. It's not going to be used. Mass graves in New York! And they showed the aerial photo of the mass grave that they use for unidentified prisoners that die in prison or die in other cases. It's all performance art at this point, you guys. It really is. It really is. They want you to be afraid, so they roll out the mobile morgue. See, if you don't get your booster, you could end up in there. It's all performance art at this point. Yeah, keep ice cream in there until the bodies show up. Another one of people who are fully vaccinated and want to tell you that as much as they can. BuzzFeed New York City holiday party becomes COVID super spreader event. Several employees infected. Insider. From Leibt. Idlibi, I think? Yeah. Several BuzzFeed staffers have been infected with COVID-19 following the company's holiday party in Manhattan last week, according to a report from Insider. 3 BuzzFeed employees who tested positive following the party told Insider that they were vaccinated and received their boosters prior to contracting the pinko fucking pox at the event and are experiencing mild symptoms. BuzzFeed has reportedly strengthened COVID-19 protocols following the party and amid a surge in cases in New York City, including putting up a temporary freeze on group meetings over 6 people, requiring masks in office until further notice, and freezing all non-essential business travel until the new year. The company is also conducting contact tracing as well as offering free testing for close contacts. The party, held on December 10th at the Starrett Leahy building in Manhattan, was attended by employees from BuzzFeed's New York and Washington offices, in addition to employees from HuffPo, which BuzzFeed acquired last year. And yeah, I don't think that they need to do a lot of traveling anymore. They don't do a lot of on-the-ground reporting anymore, and they did used to do that. But for the most part, I think they could probably even work from home at this point, because it's really easy to go off and make up a story of why SpongeBob is the actual racist catalyst that pushed the alt-right into existence. You can do that shit from home. Oh, this was fucking dumb. This was dumb. Once again, trying to put this all, since they're putting the death counter up there, they have to put this all in the orange man. House Oversight Committee releases reports detailing efforts of the Trump administration officials to undermine COVID-19 efforts in the U.S. You know, I remember when Trump got up and gave the speech and said, okay, the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, they're the worst. They want us to shut down the borders and keep people from coming out here. They want to keep us from bringing people in from China because they're xenophobic. Now I want you to go out and party in Chinatown, and travel to China and come back. And do everything you can because we're not going to be xenophobic, okay? This is nothing to worry about. Oh wait, no, that was Nancy Pelosi that said that. And Chuck Hughes Schumer. So in Chuck's case, a different Manhattan accent. From Lauren Fox and Daniela Diaz. The Trump admin officials made deliberate efforts to undermine the nation's coronavirus response for political purposes, the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, led by Democrats, said in a report released Friday. The committee, which spent months working to interview former Trump officials, said the admin worked to undermine public health's response to the coronavirus pandemic by blocking officials from speaking publicly, watering down testing guidance, and attempting to interfere with other public health guidance. Many pieces of the report were a summation of documents and interviews they've released throughout the year, but the reports also outlined the new examples where health guidance was adapted despite officials' concerns about the potential harmful effects and changes. In one instance, Dr. Jay Butler, the Deputy Director for Infectious Diseases at the CDC, told the committee that he was upset and concerned about the guidance he was directed to update in May 2020 for faith communities. He said he feared that some of the altered guidance about masking and other church practices could potentially put lives at risk. He wrote an email about the change that he was very troubled this Sunday morning that there would be people who get sick and perhaps die because of what they were forced to do. Dude, there's so much wrong with this situation. And I think our playlist generator over there, wherever they're transmitting out of, is having problems because I keep hearing stuff skip around over there. We might change the track if they keep skipping around. But it's hilarious to me that now they're trying to come back and say, oh, well, we're having Omicron right now because the evil Donald Trumpler tried to undermine public health scrutiny off of this. He is probably going to run, and they're probably terrified of that. Because they're probably terrified he's going to win at this point. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Especially after the student loan thing jumped back out at everybody. Now a bunch of them are probably going to come back and get fired. But that's what we see off of that. Here's one that I thought was funny. Sugar Tits of Bearing and Sugar Tits marriage fame tweets out, great, with a screenshot that says, fatal in 15 minutes, warning to Aussies, as snakes and spider numbers surge. To which Aleximus Prime, quote tweets out and says, God has already sent the plague as punishment. Australia, let your people go. You get a follow for that. Even though you look like you're a brony type. That was funny enough that I'm still going to give you a follow for that one. Let my people go. From the Blaze, tech company develops microchip implanted in the body that stores a COVID-19 vaccine passport, so it's always accessible. Hey, I hear it's going to be in your right hand. Maybe on your forehead. Every one of you, get a quarter and go put it in the Alex Jones was right jar. Every single one of you, go over there and put your quarter in the Alex Jones was right jar. Right now. From Paul Saka. There have been rumors that a COVID-19 passport in the form of a microchip implanted in the body would likely be developed, but that speculation was widely dismissed as a conspiracy theory. However, the conspiracy theory now appears to be close to a reality after a tech company touted a microchip that is implanted in a body that can serve as a COVID-19 vaccine passport. For years, Swedish startup Epicenter has specialized in implanting microchips the size of grains of rice into the body that can act as key cards to open doors, public transportation passes, or be a credit card, Metro reported. According to Digital Cultures researcher Moa Peterson, around 6,000 people in the country have so far had a chip inserted in their hands. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Stockholm-based Epicenter has worked on developing an implantable microchip that can be used as a coronavirus vaccine passport. A startup hub in Sweden has showcased the use for its microchip implants, your COVID-19 vaccination passport. The South China Morning Post reported the company Epicenter plans to market the versatility of the technology spent on developing. Chips use near-field communication, which can communicate with any NFC-capable smartphone. The company says the procedure is entirely reversible. Nope. No. Nope. 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 We ain't doing that. We ain't doing that shit. I remember the fear in the 80s that we'd all be microchipped when we started microchipping pets. I really do. There it is. Did you all put your quarter in the Alex Jones was right jar? Did you all put it in there? All right. We're going to go grab another track here because this one's fucking up on us. It's background music, so I mean, we don't need a lot, but... Hey, look, this J. Edgar guy is live, and 2 people are watching him over on YouTube. Meanwhile, we gotta wait for this archive to come back up. The site can't be reached. Let's do the video game one, just for the fuck of it. I like that one. Okay, apparently that one's not going to work. Whatever. Let's grab one from ABC7 then. Threats of possible school shootings, bombings circulate on TikTok, prompting LAUSD and FBI response. From Christine Cordero and John Gregory. A threat of shootings and bombings at school campuses across the country has been circulating on social media. The FBI's LA field office and LA's Unified School District tell ABC7 they're aware of the threats. There are posts circulating on TikTok raising awareness about the threats and encouraging students to stay home on Friday, December 17th. The social media threat indicates shootings and bombings will take place at schools across the U.S. on that date. Guess that didn't happen. The FBI takes all potential threats seriously, a spokesperson for the Bureau said in a statement. We regularly work with other law enforcement partners to determine the credibility of any threats. As always, we would like to remind members of the public that if they observe anything suspicious, to report it to law enforcement immediately. While we continue to monitor intelligence, we are not aware of any specific threats or known credible threats to schools in LA region at this time. Uh-oh. Are we losing network connectivity here? Oh, there it goes. An LAUSD spokesperson told ABC7 that district officials were aware of the threats and released a statement that said, in part, while there's no reason to believe our schools are in any danger, please know that we take such threats very seriously and take any action necessary to ensure the continued safety of our school communities. Our school administrators work with school site staff, LA school police, and local and federal law enforcement officials where warranted to ensure that all threats are fully investigated and handled appropriately, the LAUSD statement continued. So, with that, I don't know what happened or where this all came from, but yeah, apparently nothing happened because it's now the 20th, and that's where we're at. All right. From the post-millennial. Everything's got to reload right now, which is weird. We used to go through this all the time. I don't know why, but my antivirus seems to be like loading up on everything too. So I might have to go and shut AVG or uninstall AVG. If it's going to keep doing that. And I don't want to go and uninstall my antivirus, but if it's going to keep doing this shit, it's going to slow down the flow of the program. California school allegedly coached 12-year-old into trans identity behind parents' back. From Hannah Nightingale. On Wednesday, the parent of a former student at the Spreckles Union School District issued a scathing speech against members of the school board, stating that teachers at the school had affirmed her daughter's transgender identity without talking to her first. Jessica Conan has alleged that the school staff indoctrinated her then 12-year-old daughter in an LGBTQ club disguised as an equality club, according to the Epoch Times. Two teachers at a California school reportedly coached a 12-year-old into a trans identity behind her parents' back. The school also changed her name and pronouns without informing the parents. Let's listen.
Let these teachers come in and act as if they have nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong. A mistake? How long of a mistake? How many mistakes are we going to take before my child almost lost her life? They didn't tell me that my child was suicidal. You allowed these teachers to open their classrooms teaching predatory information to a young child, a mindful child that doesn't even know how to comprehend it all. How do you not know what was going on your own campuses? Did you think that no parent would ever come forward? You will not quiet me today. I will stand here today and protect my child along with every other child who has not come forward yet. Do they have psychiatry degrees that I was unaware of? Because I didn't hire them. Okay, I did not hire them to sit there and nitpick my child's brain. You took away my ability to parent my child. Even before I had any knowledge. I didn't even get to show support. You asked for support, I didn't get a chance. You planted seeds, Miss Caldera, and Miss Baraki, Mr. Baraki, and you, Miss Pagarin. Your job was to educate my child in math, science, English, etc. Do your job and let me do mine. They assumed that my child needed your aid and resources. They pushed it in the face. And tonight, I will stick up for her. Miss Caldera, you're guilty. Miss Baraki, you're guilty. You changed her personal documentation, her gender, her name, her email. I authorized an AKA added to her attendance because I wanted to be supportive. But guess what? She's allergic to bees. Her medical record says a birth name, and you changed it. Who administers that now? Not everything, not me. You guys did this on your own accountability, and you've gone too far. They downgraded me in front of my child and allowed me to question myself as a mother. You sat there and told me how my child was going to be. And then you wrapped your hands around her while I sat across the table and cried. Because you thought you could be there better than I, and I never got a chance. She was scared to even say anything. Your guys' voice were heard, not hers.
That's a powerful speech, too, and unfortunately, I mean, Merrick Garland is sitting over there licking his fucking chops. The FBI is going to get into another one. Another MAGA person who's going to school board meetings, and I'm going to put her in a prison, too. But where's the lie? I mean, where is the lie at this point? But that's what we see coming off of that. Wait, our Bolt, that's not mainstream? That's not something that a normal person would be watching. Oops. What else do we have here? From NBC. A little bit of white pill for you after that one. Remaining missionaries kidnapped in Haiti by gang are released. From Alicia Fieldstadt. A Haitian gang has released the remaining 12 hostages it abducted more than 2 months after they were kidnapped, their Ohio-based religious group announced on Thursday. We glorify God for answered prayer. The remaining 12 hostages are free. Join us in praising God that all 17 of our loved ones are now safe, the organization, Christian Aid Ministries, said in a statement. Thank you for your fervent prayers throughout the past 2 months. We hope to provide more information as we are able. So, that's the Christian Ministries organization prayer. Let's just come together. Thank you, Father, for bringing these missionaries home safely. Thank you for their fervor. Thank you for letting them be willing to go back in there to try to change hearts and minds to you. But when they could not, thank you for getting them home safely and returning to their families. Amen. Haiti National Police spokesman Gary Desrosiers also confirmed that the hostages had been found safe. He would not say where they had been taken. 17 people working with the group were kidnapped in October by the 400 Mawozo gang, which controls the Gantier commune in the suburbs of Port-au-Prince, where the missionaries were taken. Christian Aid Ministries had previously said 16 U.S. citizens and a Canadian citizen were kidnapped, 6 men, 6 women, and 5 children. The missionaries were taken as they were returning from an orphanage an hour and a half after the ministry's base that is often visited by staff members. The group, based in Millersburg, Ohio, repeatedly called for supporters to fast and pray for the hostages' safe release, at one point this month encouraging Christians to fast for 3 days. Haitian officials said the group's leader was demanding $1 million per hostage, totaling $17 million. A video circulating on social media, which a U.S. official said appeared to be legitimate, threatened to kill hostages if ransom demands weren't met. No word as to whether or not the ransom was paid, but they are home safe at least, so good on that. From the Associated Press. Chauvin pleads guilty to federal charge in Floyd's death. From Amy Forliti. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin pleaded guilty on Wednesday to a federal charge of violating George Floyd's civil rights by bringing an advertisement up in the middle of reading the article, admitting for the first time that he kept his knee on Floyd's neck even after he became unresponsive, resulting in the black man's death. Chauvin, who is white, was convicted this spring of state murder and manslaughter charges in Floyd's May 25, 2020 death and was sentenced to 22.5 years. In his federal plea Wednesday, Chauvin admitted he willfully deprived Floyd of his right to be free from unreasonable seizure, including unreasonable force by a police officer, by kneeling on Floyd's neck, even though he was handcuffed and not resisting. A second federal count in Floyd's death was dismissed, but Chauvin pleaded guilty to another count in an unrelated 2017 case. Chauvin appeared in person for the change of a plea hearing in an orange short-sleeve prison shirt and was led into and out of the court in handcuffs. He said, "Guilty, Your Honor," to confirm his pleas and acknowledge that he committed acts alleged. Chauvin could have faced life in prison on the federal count, one possible incentive for him to avoid trial. Under the plea agreement, both sides agreed Chauvin should face a sentence ranging from 20 to 25, with persecutors saying he would seek 25. The final sentence will be up to the U.S. District Judge Paul Magnuson, but Chauvin is likely to face more time behind bars than he would on the state charges alone. With good behavior, Chauvin's state sentence could have amounted to 15 before he became eligible for parole. A federal sentence would run at the same time, and good behavior can also reduce that time, but inmates typically serve about 85% of their sentences. This means if Chauvin gets 25, he would likely spend 21 years and 3 months in prison, or roughly 6 years longer behind bars than the state sentence alone. 3 other former officers, Thomas Lane, Jay Kuang, and Tao Thao, were indicted on federal charges alongside Chauvin. Floyd's arrest and death, which a bystander captured on cell phone video, sparked mass protests nationwide. I don't know really the strategy behind him coming out and pleading guilty, other than the fact it's been pointed out to me that he has an almost impossible time getting a lawyer for appeal off of this. So to get an addition to what he got off of this, rather than taking life by taking it to trial, you know, like I say, he could be out in just 2.5 years beyond what the max sentence was for state ones, and you know, not in there for the rest of his life, which honestly, I do think that he's probably going to be in there for the rest of his life. I'm pretty sure he's going to die in prison. Conveniently, somebody's going to get something slipped into him, wherever he's being held, and get paid off in a carton of cigarettes to do it. Let's grab this one from the Boston Globe. Redo the first 2 amendments, from Marianne Franks. Speech and guns, 2 of the most contentious issues in America today, with 2 controversies fueled not only by personal passions and identity politics, but by competing interpretations of the Constitution. Perhaps more than any other parts of the Constitution, the First and Second Amendments inspire religious-like fervor in many Americans, with accordingly irrational results. As legal texts go, neither of the 2 amendments is a model of clarity or precision. Alright. I'm going to read a little bit more of this, and then we're actually going to read what the amendments say to see if there's clarity or not. More important, both are deeply flawed in their respective conceptualizations of some of the most important rights of a democratic society, the freedom of expression and religion, and the right to self-defense. These 2 amendments are highly susceptible to being read in isolation from the Constitution as a whole, and from its commitments to equality and the collective good. That was the point. The First and Second Amendments tend to be interpreted as in aggressively individualistic ways that ignore the reality of conflict among competing rights. This in turn allows the most powerful members of society to reap the benefits of those constitutional rights at the expense of vulnerable groups. Both amendments would be improved by explicitly situating individual rights within the framework of domestic tranquility and the general welfare set out in the Constitution's preamble. Making such an edit to the First Amendment would provide stronger and fairer protections for the right of expression, including by acknowledging, as many state constitutions do, every person remains responsible for abuses of that right. Such modification would, for example, help undo the damage caused by the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United and remove constitutional barriers to reasonable campaign finance laws that promote democratic legitimacy. In addition, implicit principle of the separation of church and state would be made explicit. Yeah, the only part of the First Amendment that the left knows. All right, let's see what these actually say, the text. See if there's any lack of clarity in these. And I'm actually going to look these up to make sure that I have these dead on right without an argument, because I would hate to get this wrong for these people. What does the First Amendment say? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's pretty cut and dry, straightforward. Congress shall make no law. Where's the side of this? Congress shall make no law. End of story. Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. And that one even said, I know, I love the, whoa, they said, they said the well-regulated militia. Everybody forgets that part. What does it say at the end? The right of the people, individually, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But this is the proposal that they're making over here at the Boston Globe. Every person has the right to freedom of expression, association, peaceful assembly, and petition of the government for redress of grievances consistent with the rights of others to the same and the subject and responsibility for abuses. All conflicts of such rights shall be resolved in accordance with the principle of equality and dignity of all persons. Both freedom of religion and the freedom from religion shall be respected by the government. The government may not single out any religion for interference or endorsement, nor may it force any person to accept or adhere to any religious belief or practice. That's basically it, is the fact that they want, I want separation of church and state explicitly in the Constitution. That doesn't need to be there. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. There's actually not even a separation of church and state in there. It says Congress shall make no law. End of story. The Second Amendment's idiosyncratic and anachronistic focus on militias and arms degrades the concept of self-defense. The right to safeguard one's life should not be conflated with or reduced to the right to use a weapon, especially a weapon that is so much more likely to inflict injury and death than to avoid it. Far better would be an amendment that guarantees meaningful right to bodily autonomy and obligates the government to implement reasonable measures to protect public safety and health. All the people have the right to bodily autonomy consistent with the right of other people to the same, including the right to defend themselves against unlawful force and the right of self-determination in reproductive matters. The government shall take reasonable measures to protect the health and safety of the public as a whole. So basically, they're just trying to throw the entire Second Amendment out and turn it into the Roe versus Wade Amendment. But that's not what is in either of these amendments. That is not what's there. The right of the people, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Congress shall make no law, and they've already violated this amendment. There are a lot of people that are in favor of the violation that's there, namely the background check. That is a violation of the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I also noticed, looking into the language of both of these, they make both of them into positive rights. The government's allowing you to defend yourself. The government's allowing you to speak freely. Because of these amendments. Whereas, over here, what we're seeing in the original amendments is the government's not allowed to do this. We are restricting ourselves as a government from allowing us to do this. This person is way the fuck off base off of this. But I did like how she tried to slip in the Roe versus Wade amendment for it. Alright, what else do we have? We're almost there! Fuck, we might get done before 10 today. These archives ever fucking load back up. Well, we might have to save that one too, because that one doesn't appear that wants to load up. Archive is having a problem again, apparently. Alright, well, let's keep going then. From NBC, Judging the Judges. Watchdog groups see spike in interest after the Rittenhouse trial. From Safia Sami Ali. A few weeks after the verdict in the Rittenhouse trial, Michelle Gara signed up to volunteer with Court Watch PG, a Maryland-based organization that trains people to monitor trials to keep the judges and prosecutors accountable. Following the proceedings closely, Gara was particularly disturbed with how the judge operated, she said. It was surreal watching the judge coddle him like that. I have been in court and they don't treat people like that, she said. Well, they probably should. Gara, 50, asked herself before she reached out to become the court watcher, if a high-profile case could play out in this way, then what are judges doing when nobody's watching? Rittenhouse was acquitted of fatally shooting 2 people in Kenosha during racial justice protests last year, while they were not considered misconduct. The temperament and behavior of Circuit Judge Bruce Schrader, who presided over the trial, drew scrutiny, mainly because some said he appeared to have a soft and lenient stance toward Rittenhouse. Interest in organizations like Courtwatch PG, which trains volunteers to observe both real and virtual court proceedings and report problematic practices by judges and prosecutors, has risen since the Rittenhouse trial as more people cite concerns about bias in courts. While the methods of reporting vary by organization, most use the compiled data to alert the public about issues and sound the alarm to officials, among other things. All kinds of injustices happen in empty courtrooms where no one is watching, said Carmen Johnson, Courtwatch PG's director. Johnson said people from as far away as Montana and Idaho have asked how to Courtwatch in the last few weeks. The organization collects data on problematic patterns by judges and prosecutors and makes its findings public in reports and accountability letters to officials through grassroots awareness and campaigns on social media. This is a way people can feel empowered, she said. Keeping a watch keeps a check on those with the most power in the courtroom. Which, okay, this is all good. More people should be watching these judges to make sure that they don't do bullshit. But see, the problem is, I don't see this as them trying to actually get a change and have an even-handed end on this. I mean, if it was me and I was court watching, I would be doing so in the reasoning that I would want more Bruce Schraders out there for everybody. No matter what the color of their skin, no matter what the charge was. I want the prosecution first and foremost to be held to account, because they are the state, and the state has all the resources, all the authority, all this and everything else. And I do want them to be held to account, but that doesn't seem what they want it to be. They want to make sure that they get the outcomes and the political ends that they want. Because they never made a mention over the situation where the kid got let out on basically a signature in Texas after he shot up his school. They never made that recommendation. And I think that, yes, all judges should be making sure that all lawyers stay in the line. That all lawyers for the prosecution are hampered and hamstrung and have everything turned against them because the state has too much power. Way too much power. So yes, all of them, every single one of them, every prosecutor in this country should be battered around the way that Schrader battered around Binger on every single case. Every time. But unfortunately, I don't see this group as wanting to do that. Considering they wanted to be harder on one specific person in court. Let's grab one from Fox. Nick Sandmann reaches settlement with NBC in Covington Catholic High School controversy. From Charles Krietz. Nicholas Sandmann settled Friday with NBC Universal. Oh, go away. I'm not going to allow ads on Fox News. Fuck you. Oh, they're not going to give me the little X anymore either. You cocksuckers. Alright, we'll come back to that one tomorrow. Because I'll archive it. And then we don't have to worry about it.
We all remember the case of then high school student Nicholas Sandmann. He was smeared, slandered, besmirched by the media mob.
We'll get rid of that because nobody wants to listen to Hannity. But speaking of Fox News, Aaron Rupar had to come out and, show what Tucker Carlson is really like behind the scenes.
Oh, Kyle Rittenhouse! It is so nice to meet you.
It's really good to meet you.
I can't believe you're
Big
here.
fan of your show.
Well, we're fans of yours, as you know.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
For most Americans, Kyle Rittenhouse is more meme than man. But in real life, Rittenhouse is a working-class kid from the least privileged sector of our society.
I worked at Six Flags as a custodian. I was a fry cook. I fried cheese curds, fish.
Rittenhouse was a lifeguard and a firehouse cadet. He did this to support his family and to help his community. But under the rules of anarcho-tyranny, you're not allowed to protect your community. Protecting his community is just what Kyle Rittenhouse felt compelled to do.
So tell me, Kyle.
Oh, Kyle Rittenhouse!
Yeah, and Aaron Rupar is so pissed off that Tucker Carlson is a fan of someone whose claim to fame is killing two people. I wouldn't call that my hero either, but you know, some of this has to go with the narrative off of this, but the fact that it triggered Aaron Rupar in and of himself is delicious enough to me that I wanted to have it up on here. Let's talk about Florida Man. They finally got him, you guys. Florida Man gets 5 years for assault and Capitol riot, the longest sentence yet. Well, I guess Florida's going to be a lot calmer here because they got Florida Man. They put him away. From Pete Williams. A Florida man was sentenced on Friday to just over 5 years in prison for assaulting police officers during the January 6th riot at the Capitol. The sentence of 63 months was the longest one yet imposed among the more than 150 defendants who have pleaded guilty to taking part in the siege. It has to be made clear that trying to violently overthrow the government, really, trying to stop the peaceful transition of power, and assaulting law enforcement officers in that effort is going to be met with absolute certain punishment, said U.S. District Judge and persecutor Tanya S. Chutkan. Robert Palmer, 54 of Tampa, was charged with repeatedly assaulting police officers in the Capitol's Lower West Terrace. Persecutors said he threw a wooden plank at the police, then picked up a fire extinguisher and sprayed its contents at a line of officers, throwing the canister at them after it was empty. A few minutes later, persecutors said he picked up the fire extinguisher and threw it at them a second time, and assaulted another group of officers with a metal pole, throwing it like a spear. He stopped the attack when an officer shot him in the abdomen with a rubber bullet. The officers were able to shield themselves and none of them were hurt, according to the court documents. Those people were so brave, standing there, just taking all the stuff that people were giving them, all the taunts, all the jeers and everything, Palmer told the judge before he was sentenced. I'm so ashamed that I was a part of that. Very, very ashamed, he said. Palmer was one of the first to turn himself in to the FBI shortly after the riot. He pleaded guilty in October. His lawyer, Bjorn Brunband, and Palmer deserved a reduction in said that Palmer deserved a reduction in sentence because he took responsibility for his actions. But prosecutors said he showed a lack of remorse in a misleading social media posting that solicited support after he pleaded guilty. The posting said he acted in self-defense, that he threw the fire extinguisher only after he was shot with the non-lethal round. Palmer admitted during Friday's hearing that his claim of self-defense was false. Yeah, if you threw the first shot... Now, personally, I look at this and I see the 5-year sentence that came off of this as... I mean, this is political persecution. There are no two ways around that. That is what's happening here. He is being politically persecuted based on the party that he supports. They're putting him up for 5 years for all the people that they can't put up right now. Because he did. He came in and he said, I'm sorry, I did this. Take me in. I'm guilty. I'm not going to try to fight you. Now, as far as what he did, yeah, he should have been taken in. He assaulted people. And this was shown. He assaulted people. But he is taking the cross for all the mostly peaceful people who walked in there and milled around. He's bearing up their crosses because a lot of them are just going to get simple fines and trespass violations off of this. For what was not a violent insurrection of the country. It was a few assholes amid a people who were just walking around, like this dude. And that's part of the reason that my best friend's video got taken down off of everything. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and everything else. It's part of the reason that all his stuff got taken down. Because his video shows people just standing in the Capitol, milling around. His video doesn't show violent, bloody, fiery insurrection. It shows a bunch of people standing in the rotunda saying, shit, what do we do now? Grab one from CNN. Might have to cut. Like I said, it looks like they took the X away from the ad blocker thing, so I might have to archive these Fox News ones. Why is the Fox? Why is Fox the one that's the most grabbled when we read from CNN? How is that possible? The Blaze, Fox, Reuters, Newsweek. Why are they the ones that are most grabbled when we're reading from CNN? CNN exclusive. January 6 investigators believe November 4th text pushing strategy to undermine election came from Rick Perry. From Jake Tapper and Jamie Gangel. Members of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 selfie fest believe that former Texas Governor and Trump Energy Secretary Rick Perry was the author of a text message sent to then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows the day after the 2020 election, pushing an aggressive strategy for 3 state legislatures to ignore the will of the voters and deliver the state's electors to Donald Trump. 3 sources familiar with the House Committee investigation tell CNN, honk, 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 honk. A spokesperson for Perry told CNN that former Energy Secretary denies being the author of the text. Multiple people who know Rick Perry confirmed to CNN that the phone number the committee has associated with the text message is Perry's number. The cell phone number the text is sent from, obtained from a source knowledgeable about the investigation but unnamed as usual, appears in databases as being registered to a James Richard Perry of Texas, the former governor's full name. The number is also associated in a second database as registered to a Department of Energy email address associated with Perry when he was secretary. When he told of these facts, the spokesman had no explanation. The House Select Committee declined to comment on the author of the text. The November 4th, 2020 text message from Perry's phone garnered a great deal of attention this week. It was included in a tranche of roughly 6,000 documents from Meadows turned over to the House Select Committee. And doctored by Adam Schiff, by the way. The text was first presented publicly on the House floor Tuesday by Jamie Raskin, a Maryland Democrat, and reads, "Here's an aggressive strategy. Why can't the states of Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and other R-controlled state houses declare this is BS, where conflicts in election are not called that night, and just send their own electors to vote and have it go to the SCOTUS?" Raskin cited the text in the debate over holding Meadows in criminal contempt of Congress, using it as an example of evidence that needed further explanation from Meadows, which the former chief of staff is refusing to provide. How did this text influence the planning of Mark Meadows and Donald Trump to try to destroy the lawful electoral college majority that has been established by the people of the United States and the states for Joe Biden? Raskin asked. These are the kinds of questions we have a right to ask Mark Meadows. Honk, honk, honkity, honk, 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 honk. The text to Meadows suggests a willingness to force a constitutional crisis to undermine the election even before all the legal votes have been counted. The final result from Pennsylvania and Georgia didn't come for days, honk. Trump ultimately won North Carolina. So they're trying to pull everybody into this. Everybody they can find to pull into this so they can't run again or they can't be added to another roster for anything else off of this. Let's see if Fox is still being grabbled here. Let's give that a minute. Let's actually load this one up too so we can see. Yep, that one's going to come in here. And no little red X. So we can no longer get rid of the ad blocker block. Fuckers. Alright, well, let's just do a couple more here then. Maybe, if it thinks faster. Man, we are out of memory too. Holy sh... It's time to do the memory upgrade, I think. Alright, from the New York Post. MTA manager caught using blow-up doll in apparent attempt to skirt HOV laws. From Jack Morfett and David Meyer. Surely he can't be serious. An MTA manager claims an inflatable doll that's been riding shotgun in his Kia Telluride is there for the company and not to skirt HOV restrictions as his co-worker suspected. Giulio Di Virgilio, a general superintendent at the MTA buses department, pulled into his Brooklyn office building early Wednesday morning with a blown-up dummy plopped in the front seat, like Autopilot in the 1980 comedy Airplane. Confronted by the post outside the East New York building, Di Virgilio denied he had the inflatable suit-sporting businessman in tow to illegally cruise in lanes reserved for high-occupancy vehicles. I didn't use it for the HOV, the $122,000 per year government official insisted. I use it for the company. Oh shit, now it's going to start making noise. Go away. We'll figure the rest of that out later. Pressed whether the dummy's express purpose was in fact to cheat the HOV, Di Virgilio replied, "Have I ever lied to you?" The answer is likely yes, according to his coworkers. It was weird when we saw that thing in his car in the morning. Why would anyone have that there except to do HOV stuff, said one bus's employee who requested anonymity. One union official said, "It's unbecoming of a manager. We laugh, but what else is he doing in secret that we don't know about?" The MTA said they're investigating the plastic pal. I mean, it's been a sitcom trope for 40 fucking years. It really has. So I don't know why anybody's surprised by this, but apparently they are. Alright. And the last one we'll do, and then we'll go back and I'll actually go and archive these Fox News ones, and we'll do those tomorrow again. Like I've had to start doing with Fox Business, too. This one here comes from CNN Business, and it's an outright lie. The data shows that boomers are to blame for the labor shortage. From Allison Morrow. Editor's note. A version of the story appears in CNN Business's nightcap newsletter. To get it in your inbox, sign up here for free. One of the more insidious myths making the round this year was that young people didn't want to work because they were getting by just fine on government aid. People had too much money, went the narrative from a handful of politicians and pundits. Only trouble is the numbers don't back it up. Early retirement, whether forced by the pandemic or made possible otherwise, is having a huge impact on the labor market. And data show that the retiring boomers, far more than lazy millennials, are the biggest force behind the labor shortage. People have left the workforce for a myriad of reasons in the past 2 years, but among those who have left and are least likely to return, the vast majority are older Americans who accelerated their retirement. Last month, there were 3.6 million more Americans who left the labor force and said they didn't want a job compared with November of 2019. A whopping 90% of them were over 55. There are a few more reasons why this is the case. A strong stock market, a stock market on a bubble, and soaring home prices have given higher income people, especially boomers, more options. This is ADP chief economist Nella Richardson. The nature of the scamdemic means that the risks of going to work are higher for older people. Employers aren't doing enough to lure people out of retirement. They're creating jobs, just not the ones people want. I can want a 65-inch TV for $50. That it doesn't mean there's a TV shortage. It means I'm not willing to pay enough to get somebody to sell me a TV, says Aaron Sojourner, a labor economist and a professor at the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management. Even the White House has recognized how the retirement issue is distorting our read of the labor economy. Jared Bernstein, a member of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors, says that the once non-prime age workers, those over 55, are excluded from the metrics. A much clearer picture of how the labor recovery is doing emerges because it strips out the retirement narrative. There are signs of emerging that the labor shortage is easing. First, retired people are starting to come back to work. The unretirement rate fell to just over 2% early in the pandemic, but in recent months it has ticked up to around 2.6%. According to Nick Bunker, an economist at Indeed, that's still off from the pre-pandemic rate of around 3%. Bringing people out of retirement might sound cruel, but it's not always the case. Some people retire because they wanted to stop working, but because it's too risky to work in a pandemic, or they couldn't find a job in which the benefits outweighed the risk. Another glimmer of hope for hiring managers, FedEx, which said the labor shortage cost it $470 million in a recent quarter, says the outlook for staffing is improving. Okay, that's all well and good, and I would actually, the numbers that you're presenting here, CNN, are reasonable, but it doesn't erase the fact that 2 weeks ago, you put out an article that we read at the same time in the show, towards the end of the show on a Monday, that made a victory lap and bragged about the fact that people are going in the mass resignation because they can't stand to go back and work for this, and they're getting more money from working for the government, and they're forcing the employers to bring the wages up. You were just bragging about this 2 weeks ago. I remember it. I probably still have the article somewhere in the Discord. And you can't have both things be true at once. You can't come out here and say, young people are winning because they're doing the mass resignation, and then come back 2 weeks later and say, oh, well, see, the labor force shortage has nothing to do with all the young people over here. See, if you hadn't written the first article, I might have actually believed this one. Because I double-checked the numbers last night, and it does look like there are numbers in there that support what you have to say. But you also brag that young people my age, are saying, we're not going to live on this barista wage anymore, so we're just going to retire.
Good.
And that's what it is. And since we started on the economy, and we're ending on the economy, let's finish out here, and let's do one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. And then I'm going to figure out why AVG is holding my computer down so bad. Because that seems to be what's on the processor. I was looking at the performance while we were going off of here, and yeah, the processor's pegged on AVG, so... let's grab, as we do on every Monday, we read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. The rules of acquisition promote, of course, the religion of the Ferengi in a highly capitalistic fashion. We've been going over reading the rules of acquisition for quite a while as we go along. We've been doing this for, I think, almost a year at this point. Every Monday we read another one, and we figure out whether it's good or bad, and how it applies in today's modern semi-capitalistic structure in the United States. So, where were we? #41. We are on the 41st rule of acquisition. Profit is its own reward. So, under the Ferengi religion, the more profit you earn, the better chance you have to enter the golden treasury at the end of your life. So that in and of itself, if you get more profit, you get to Ferengi heaven, essentially, by their religion. And I would like to enter the grand treasury at one point in my life as well. But this comes right back onto it, and with it, profit being its own reward, that's something that can be seen with their religion. Now, in and of itself, I don't necessarily buy into that in my own life, but there are people in this country that do. And I do believe that profit would be its own reward. But for me, the own reward would be having a system where all of your news comes from people who have to work or have had to work some of the same jobs that you do. Of course, my goal is to get people up to a situation where they don't have to work their pedestrian jobs anymore, but that people who have struggled, who have had to choose between paying a bill and getting a meal. People who have been laid off, people who have been fired, and not like a Cuomo firing, but an actual firing where you don't know what you're going to do next. That's what I want to deliver news for, and that would be its own reward for me, having that website up, having content go out every day, and having people getting their news from people who don't do it in seven-figure suits. Now, don't get me wrong. I am looking at the profit model, if we can actually get this up and running, and thinking how happy I would be signing over those paychecks to everybody in the network. That means that they never have to go back out into the workforce again. That was my goal from the beginning. When I first said I want to do my own website and break away from Freedom Scoop, the first thing I said was, I want to make sure that Britt, Freckles, Steven, John, Seawall, Midget, Birkenhoff, and the already conservative never have to want for anything again. That was my first goal of all of this, to make sure that the people who come into this website never, ever, 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 ever have to struggle again, never have to want for anything again. If they want it, they just have to go out and buy it. That's been my goal. For me, the profit's not my own reward, but taking care of the people I care about, that's its own reward. But you guys, I need a little bit of profit to do that too, so definitely we've got to work with that as well. It works hand in hand. And hey, maybe I will get into that Grand Treasury one day, yet again. But with that, I think we're done. We got out before the Daily Ignoramus. That's weird. We never do that. So, I think we're going to call it a day. Let's get the outro music up here. I'm going to figure out what the fuck is wrong with AUG, why it's holding everything down right now. But let's change up the track and call it a day. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. We actually had the Instagram go the whole day too, so thanks Instagram as well if you're watching this back on the replay over there. We will be back here later on tonight for probably one of the funniest guests I have ever met in my life. The wonderful Rachel Nix will be joining us over on the Red Net Show. That is at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, so come set your calendars. The event is already out, so you can set your reminder for that already. And I'll go ahead and get Restream set up so it goes there as soon as we're off camera here. But otherwise, yeah, come back and join us here tomorrow as well, 7:15 a.m. Central Time, for more news headlines on Contemporary as well. I'm sure that we'll have a lot to talk about. Now that Manchin has come out and his name is Mud, I'm sure that's going to be another one. Plus all the Fox News articles that refused to let me watch them with my ad blocker on. I'm surprised. It's for 3 years they've let me get away with this, and now they're not letting me get away with it anymore. So we'll go fix them. We'll figure out what's going on with them, and we will see what's happening with that tomorrow for Contemporary, and we will see you then. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.